Hello everyone, welcome to qualifying. We're just 5 minutes away to go for the quickest session of the weekend, where we get the cars to their peak performance to line up the grid for tomorrow's race on Sunday. Welcome to Montreal, welcome to Canada, the land of the maple syrup. Also the land of the man-made island that also seems to have snakes on. Unless that's just a rumour and I have been bamboozled. I would not want to be on it right now. At least if I'm not near the circuit or in a grandstand where I'm safe. Hopefully I'd be safe in a grandstand. Anyway, not going to talk about that one. We're going to talk about who we think might get pole position. Well, the McLarens did find some pace late on in FP3 earlier on today, but they have struggled more or less throughout the weekend. George Russell has not been struggling. They've been pretty quick. The Ferraris do show promise as well. Even with limited running for Charles Leclerc, they ended up P2 in practice after crashing in FP1, missing out the entirety of FP2. It's George Russell then in P3, as Lando Norris was in P1 for practice. Then it's Lewis Hamilton in P4. We've got Max Verstappen, who's trying to fight their braking problems, but still pretty speedy. With 2.5 tenths behind Lando Norris in P5. Then we've got Fernando Alonso who's looking strong around a very tricky circuit where the experience is key. Lots of low grip, bumpy moments on a street circuit that doesn't get that much running in. It's slowly getting faster as more races happen and more sessions happen with the cars over the weekend. F1 Academy, of course, being one of those series. Kimi Antonelli in P7, then we've got Oscar Piastri all the way down in P8, not having a good session at all. Then we've got Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon, Isaac Hadjar, Gasly, Lawson, Stroll, Oliver Behrman, Esteban Ocon, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, Bortoletto, and Yuki Tsunoda, who was struggling. Earlier on, the predictions of who's going to be fastest this weekend, it seemed to be a strong promise to Max Verstappen, who has won the last 3 Grand Prix around here. So definitely not a bad bet to go against. Lando Norris was in the fight for that victory. So is Lewis Hamilton and George Russell in the end. As George Russell, of course, got that pole position here 12 months ago with exactly the same lap time, a 12.0, with Max Verstappen doing the same thing. But setting it after, so it went to George for pole position. That was the 12.0. We saw a 12.75, I think, in Q2 last year, so that's the fastest we've been. But there's an 11.799 in practice 3, so we should be able to destroy last year's qualifying times and go very quickly. It's just how quickly can you make it around the circuit without hitting the wall? That is the question. It's not going to be easy, but it's the case that they will have to make. We just wait for the green flag in a couple of minutes as everyone gets ready to leave the pit lane. And then we'll be able to see the true colours, the true pace of everyone this weekend. Alrighty, we're out on track and ready to go. Just waiting for the cars to get there. There is the timing. And we will see who does what, who goes where. as it is Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon, the first to make it out. We saw Alex Albon be one of the first cars to go out, I think, on track. Was it in Monaco? Or was it Spain? A lot. They were trying to get the running. I can't remember which weekend it was, but they were on the back foot and they tried to go out early to get the best chance of getting some laps in. It did work out for them quite well, I believe, but I may be wrong. Spain didn't go so well for them, so maybe it wasn't the Spanish Grand Prix. Anyway, besides that, they're about to set their laps and we'll get to see if the Williams really have got their act together after the last couple of Grand Prix and can score some more points. Alrighty, just waiting to try and time things together, and hopefully we can get a good idea of what's going on. And I think we're all good to go now, all synced up, as everybody makes it through the circuit. Finally, qualifying is upon us. We've had some pretty exciting times here in the 2025 season so far, and we're ready for another good one. You know what? I'm going to put my prediction in the chat as well, actually. I think, you know what, I'm going to go Leclerc. Leclerc's going pole position for me. That'll be the case. Kimi Antonelli, very close on pit lane exit. Almost went into the path of the racing ball cart, but although they were called to leave by their pit crew, they did take it into their own accord to avoid a collision. So very good awareness there from Kimi Antonelli to get that one sorted. They'll have no problems. All right. Who is going to be confident enough to get these laps done early on and quickly? Well, George Russell is definitely going to be one of them, going purple in the first sector so far. Gasly leads the way on the times, as Sainz and Albon hadn't set the most competitive lap times ever. And realistically, actually, the only laps that have been set competitively are the two Alpines. And you know what? That being said, Gasly may be the only one who's actually set a competitive lap time so far, with the 13.7, but there is Tsunoda taking that away immediately. George Russell, though, they've got the final part of the circuit to go, the final chicane they will go over and complete the lap. And we'll see what the Brit does. Across the line for George Russell. Should be P1, Lance Stroll to P2. They're going to get demoted to 3. As it is George Russell, who goes 7 tenths ahead and into the 12-second mark of the Canadian Grand Prix lap time. 5.74. Antonelli goes and gets nice and close to George, actually, half a tenth away. Oliver Behrman goes off at turn 2, a big moment for the Brit. Apologises to the team on the radio as they mess up their first run. There's also Hamilton doing exactly the same thing, going very quickly across the circuit, I'll say, over turn 2. That was where Lando Norris was investigated for cutting incorrectly in practice, and they were not given any penalty, but they were noted for it, and they had to make sure that they didn't do that again. There is a procedure to do it. You can't just do it dangerously and recklessly. You do have to make sure you follow a certain line, and then you should be good. Charles Leclerc going green everywhere. They will go across the line, and they'll go to P9. And for the prediction that I have just made is for them to go to pole position, that isn't ideal. That is really not ideal at all. Just being pointed out, actually, medium tyre here for a few drivers right now in this qualifying session, but Antonelli and Russell, exactly the same machinery, different tyres, very similar lap times. And I'm sure Aston Martin are going to be looking to run their classic medium tyre strategy to get themselves into Q3. Colapinto to P3, as they now set a bit more of a competitive lap time. Gasly does not go faster than their Argentine teammate. Bortoleto splits the middle of the two drivers. Stroll currently going purple in the first sector, purple for Piastri in the middle. A 2.96 versus a 3.53, so that is rapid from Lance Stroll in the first sector. It's Lando Norris who goes to P3 behind the two Mercedes, not too far away, but does split evenly, effectively, between Antonelli and Colapinto. Purple in that final sector there for Norris. Piastri purple in the middle sector here. Across the line for the Aussie. The championship leader is going to go provisional pole. Not purple in the final or the first sector though. 2.5 tenths, mighty in the middle. Lance Stroll does lose out to that purple sector to their teammate, but they are going to go across the line. Where's it going to be for the home hero? P2 for now. Carlos Sainz in the meantime just went to P8. But it's Fernando Alonso who's going purple in that first sector and looking fairly quick in the middle. 2 tenths away from Oscar Piastri though. Fernando Alonso, the final straight is upon them into the chicane where you will find a Wall of Champions moment. Across the line for the Spaniard driver. What's it going to be for Fernando here? Relative to their teammate, they do not find the lap time, and it's almost exactly the same lap time for the two Aston Martin drivers. Oh, that wasn't ideal in the final part of the circuit, but that was a pretty good effort there. Medium tyres for Fernando Alonso relative to the soft tyres. The softs definitely seem to be quicker, but not by that much. Not by that much at all, that is for sure. It's Leclerc to P2. Another driver into the 12-second margin. That's all the way through the grid order until P12, where Albon has just missed out on that. And we're almost there to the pole time from last year. Just a couple of tenths away right now, already in Q1. 8 minutes on the clock, just past the 9 mark. And we've got plenty of time here to go until we do get to the end. There's Hadjar, a pretty impressive lap time, but it's Lewis Hamilton who takes his teammate 1.5 tenths ahead. Max Verstappen though, proving a point and proving the chat from FP3 right, that he is going to be quickest. Quickest in FP1, had some struggles after that, but have now found it all together here in qualifying. And Yuki Tsunoda has got to do something about it. They can't afford another race weekend where their teammate goes pole position and they are at the back. That's Oscar Piastri, who goes off a little bit into the grass as they made a mistake into turn 2. Sonoda now going for an improvement lap here. Green in the first sector, 20.391. A lot quicker than, I say a lot quicker, a fair bit quicker than Bortoleto, about half a tenth. Alonso, a 20.212, so a bit slower than Fernando Alonso. Alonso goes nicely to the point twos, just ahead of Max Verstappen on that medium tyre, which seems to be very impressive. Now, we've got a lot of drivers running this soft tyre. Are they going to try and go for pole position on the medium tyre? Are we seeing a few teams save those tyres for later on? I don't know. It's a very good strategy to think about, though. But Tsunoda comes out the final chicane and crosses the line to go P9. A bit more like it, but still 3 tenths away, 3.5 tenths away from Max Verstappen's time. Considering what we've seen so far, that's actually pretty good going. 6 minutes on the clock. It's Fernando Alonso who leads the way with a 12.239, followed by Max Verstappen, Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc, who's improving in the first sector, then Lance Stroll, followed by Antonelli. Then we've got Tsunoda, Hadjar, Lawson, Norris, Colapinto, Bortoleto, and Carlos Sainz in P15. We've got Gasly, Albon, Hulkenberg, Ocon, and Behrman. The Haas are struggling. The Williams aren't going as well as they would have liked to, and they've lost something. They've lost... Is that bodywork? Red flags out. As that's Alex Albon losing a lot of bodywork. That must be from... I think that's the engine cover that's completely fallen off. And that is their qualifying efforts done in the drop zone already. And incredibly frustrating. That's game over. No barrier has been destroyed, so it will be a straightforward clear-up. But for the Williams team, who have Albon dragging the carbon fibre flaps around the entire circuit, they're going to have a bit of work to do for tomorrow's race, and likely to be starting tomorrow in last place as well. Unless they've got another engine cover that they can afford to go and put on the car. I think that is going to be done, or day done for Alex Albon. 5.5 minutes on the clock. It is paused. We will wait to go again. And then we will see everybody try and set those laps. Everybody's going to be looking at the cover of the Williams to try and get a good view of it, I'm sure. All right, 5.5 minutes on the clock. Alonso looking strong. Verstappen happy. Piastri happy, especially compared to where they were before, and they're a tenth behind the fastest time. Hamilton looking strong. Russell pretty much where they want to be right now in Q1. And then we've got Leclerc in a decent position. Stroll also probably quite happy on that medium tyre as well. And then we've got Antonelli P8, we've got Tsunoda in P9, a fair way from his teammate, but in a nice position compared to before. We've got Hadjar and Lawson, who are probably hoping for a bit more. Norris in P12, who's got to get a lap done. Colapinto P13. Ahead of his teammate, though, is Ocon, Bortoletto, Sainz, then Gasly. Albon, who is hoping to get back out, but probably not going to be coming back out. And then it will be Behrman and Hulkenberg. I don't know if they'll have an extra engine cover with them, or if they'll have to get that flown in overnight. That is quite possible, because usually don't you lose an engine cover. We're just waiting for the green flag to go once again, after the Williams of Alex Albon saw an engine cover fly off as they went down the back straight. Lost a lot of aero performance, and they went into the final chicane completely sideways. And it's still just getting cleared up a little bit. They're trying to get those repairs done. Fernando Alonso leaves the pit lane to go to the end of it as we get that confirmation and the track is clear. We'll get going within about 3 minutes time. Once you get the confirmation, only once you get the confirmation can you leave to the fast lane and wait at the end of the pit lane. If you don't get that confirmation, you have to either wait in the pit box or the pit lane, well, the kind of the box lane, whereas if you go to the fast lane, then you can only do that if you are told the session will be starting. And they have been told. So we've got a lot of cars queuing up. The two McLarens very far up the field to beat the traffic to qualifying here. And they're all just waiting. They want that track position because they know there's only 5.5 minutes. They know that the cars in front are going to try and delay the gaps as much as possible. They're going to try and get some clean air for later on in the lap. Alex Albon hoping to get back out here if they can. A job that the Williams crew wouldn't have wanted to do. I can see a bit of tape being held by a few mechanics. So everybody should get a decent chance of setting another lap, but it's probably only going to be one lap considering the traffic. And so far, we've got Norris, Piastri out. I think Verstappen or Alonso is out, definitely. So everybody is going to have to come out. If you've got the fastest car on the grid leaving the pit lane, the chances are everybody's going to be out on track when it gets to these final moments. You don't really do it any other way. So currently waiting for that confirmation, and we should be going again any second now. The light is red and the light is finally, I'm going to say green in a minute. The light is red and it's finally green. There you go. We're once again racing, or green flag. And Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris waits for Oscar Piastri to leave the pit lane so they can get a bit of a gap before they need to worry about the minimum delta time. Oscar Piastri completely free ahead, no worries in front of them. So Lando Norris will follow on with a big gap in between. Leclerc will do the same. And everybody's going to try and give each other a little bit of space so they can actually find a way to prep their own lap. It can get a little bit chaotic. We have got plenty of time, so we might see a few drivers leave a little bit later on. But right now, Fernando Alonso and Colapinto only just leaving the pit lane, whereas we see Oscar Piastri going into the hairpin already. So Oscar Piastri is at risk at getting a bit of traffic here if they're not careful. It's just how fast these Formula 1 cars are, even on an outlap. It's pretty crazy. Behrman's leaving the pit lane as Piastri comes into the final chicane to start their lap. Hopefully they don't get in the way of the Aussie driver, the championship leader, who's going to try and make sure they're a bit safer in this session. Seems that nobody thinks they're that safe at this point in the session. There is Piastri though. Through and ahead. I think Ocon didn't get in the way, although they were very close. Lando Norris goes through into turn 1 and through to turn 2. And seems pretty cool and collected. As of now, they go into turns 3 and 4, where Charles Leclerc crashed in FP1 and cracked that chassis. They are back in it all together today and looking very, very quick. It's Lando Norris who goes purple ahead of Oscar Piastri. The 12.048 is purple, 20, a 20.171 for Oscar Piastri. So quite far off to their teammate is Oscar Piastri in the first sector. 22.668 there for Lando Norris. Purple in the middle sector is Gasly, who's taken that purple first sector. Very close to Lando Norris though. Still looking at Norris going fastest possibly here, as Oscar Piastri didn't have the best middle sector. They go purple in the final at 29.006, almost into the 28s. Lando Norris across the line. What's it going to be for the Brit? It's going to be provisional. Well, it's going to be top of the times right now. 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes on the clock. And it's quite a way off in the final sector. So it evens out a bit. It's Leclerc who goes almost 4 tenths away from Norris, but up to P3 still. And there's Hamilton who beats him immediately. 10-place grid penalty. Is that for Yuki Tsunoda for safety car, or sorry, red flag infringement in practice? I just wanted to remind everyone of that. I think it's Yuki Tsunoda. I might be wrong. It might be another driver, but there is someone getting a 10-place grid penalty. Colapinto up to P6, really working quite well, despite having their woes earlier on in the weekend. Yesterday, 2 spins. Currently now too far ahead of their teammate as far as Gasly's concerned. Gasly needs to do a little bit more here, otherwise they could be in trouble. It's a McLaren 1-2, as this is the first time we've seen it so far this weekend. So-called dominant team doesn't seem to have it all together so far, but they are creeping back up to where they have been so far. Business as usual, if you could call it that. And Hadjar coming into the final chicane. Purple in the middle sector for George Russell, who's going very quickly. The Frenchman, though, across the line. What's it going to be? P5 for them, just behind Fernando Alonso. 53 minutes on the clock at the moment. Once again, medium tyres here for both Stroll and Alonso. Scrubbed medium tyres, I should remind you as well. Russell to P5, who doesn't have the best final sector, but it's pretty competitive anyway, and enough to go fairly quickly. So Leclerc needs to maybe do a little bit more here. Tsunoda currently looking to be not safe. Antonelli not too far away, so Antonelli's not really safe. Neither would be That's just happened if that's the case. And that's Oliver Behrman, who had a terrible, terrible final chicane. Still to P11, pushing down Yuki Tsunoda and the home favourite, Lance Stroll. Fernando Alonso, purple in the first sector. Hulkenberg up to P12. And Tsunoda is in danger and is out, quite possibly already out of qualifying. That's Esteban Ocon, P14. We've got a 26 for Lance Stroll. He's one away from being knocked out, and that could be it here for Lance Stroll. Liam Lawson will not be able to, or might be able to go again. It's Gasly who is in trouble, in big, big trouble. Carlos Sainz will be demoted for a minute behind Bortoleto, and Carlos Sainz will be out of qualifying. Alex Albon, despite having the issues earlier on, is P7, and Carlos Sainz struggles once again as they did in the Spanish Grand Prix. What is going on? Gasly is P20. I do not believe what I'm seeing. Colapinto P9 and Gasly P20. Wow! Liam Lawson out, Lance Stroll out, Sainz out, and Bortoleto is out of qualifying. That is that done. Q1 finished. Bortoleto, Carlos Sainz, Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson and Pierre Gasly will be done. Absolutely finished. And the gap between P1 and P20 is 8.5 tenths. That is close. Incredibly close here in Montreal. That's what we want to see. A circuit where the mechanical grip is crucial and you really have to feel it as a driver, and you see them come alive. That's Carlos Sainz getting blocked there in qualifying. That's one of the racing balls. I don't know if that's Liam Lawson. No, that's Isaac Hadjar. Isaac Hadjar thought that Carlos Sainz had aborted their lap, so didn't move out the way, and that's that done. Isaac Hadjar looking at a penalty after qualifying for when they'll start the grid, which is a shame. They've still managed to beat their teammate, and it could be about 3 position penalty, a grid slot penalty, maybe 5 if it's a bit more severe. I think it would be 3 because that's what Hamilton got in Monaco. That was actually purple in the first sector there for Fernando Alonso before they went into the pit lane. So they were going really quickly once again. Almost into the 19-second margin of the first sector. Which is unreal. That was a pretty intense qualifying session already. And we've got 2 more of those to get through. Antonelli's lap time was actually deleted, but it didn't make a difference. They are still in qualifying. Lawson is completely mind-boggled on what just happened there. Not entirely sure how they've been knocked out. The racing balls were very strong here last year, so they were hoping for double points. And realistically, looking at the situation now, I don't think that's going to happen. So looking at Carlos Sainz's lap, they're showing how the lap wasn't actually that great to begin with in the first sector. They were wrestling the wheel throughout, and then they come through turn 5 and into 6, and the racing ball just doesn't move out the way, and there's nothing you can do. It's game over anyway. They continued the lap, but just way too far down to make a difference. And that's that done. Alex Albon with the spare engine cover, manages to get back into qualifying after looking like it could be over. And they've got themselves into P8 and into Q2. Carlos Sainz completely out of it. And looking at the gap between getting into Q2 and being knocked out for Carlos Sainz, it's actually tiny margins. So, you know what? If they did complete that lap, they might have had a go. They might have had a go here in Q2. It's a big shame, and it's also a shame because Hadjar's going to probably get a penalty for that, and there's not much they can do about it. They get told by their team what's happening behind them, so then they can move out the way accordingly, but yeah, nothing really changes. Looks like Colapinto is going for a snooze in the cockpit. Sat in the car with their eyes closed. And then all of a sudden they seem to just wake up. As they were maybe told, you're on camera. Just waiting for confirmation and when we'll be going into the next part of qualifying here in Montreal. So far we've seen Antonelli, sorry not Antonelli, we've seen Bortoleto, Sainz, Stroll, Lawson and Gasly all be knocked out of qualifying. Ocon and Tsunoda were the ones who were very close to being knocked out, but we'll actually just go for the order. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri make it a McLaren 1-2 for the first time this weekend. We haven't seen that before so far. And then we've got Hamilton and Leclerc following each other in P3 and 4, followed by Verstappen, Alonso, Russell, Albon, Hadjar and Colapinto with a great performance to P10. Antonelli in P11, and it's Behrman, Hülkenberg, Tsunoda and Ocon. Now, we get the green flag and we'll be going qualifying once again. Hadjar could be in trouble for impeding Carlos Sainz and is going to get investigated after the session, so I'm going to assume a 3-place grid penalty for them right now. I believe it was Yuki Tsunoda who had the red flag infringement. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, Tsunoda will get a 10-place grid penalty for a red flag infringement. So wherever Tsunoda qualifies, they will get 10 positions plonked onto that. So they have to make sure that they get as far up the top 10 as they possibly can. Otherwise, they're just going to start last. Now, currently, it's Max Verstappen who is out on track first and is going to be setting their lap time. The out lap, a 24 for Max Verstappen. We're looking to go well over 10 seconds faster than that. We have a few problems, of course, in the Canadian Grand Prix circuit, where there's some groundhogs that do sit on the circuit and watch. They try to catch them before the weekend and keep them safe, but you can't catch them all. You can't catch them all. You do your best. And you've just got to hope that none of them get hit. Usually pretty good at not hitting them, but they are occasionally struck. I'm not entirely sure. Is it more common to see the Wall of Champions be hit or a groundhog in Canada? I have a feeling that it's the groundhogs. Which is sad to say, but it is what it is. Efforts are made, at least. 11 minutes on the clock in this 15-minute session. Verstappen is provisional pole. Just under half a tenth away is Lando Norris, followed by Piastri, Leclerc, Hamilton, Behrman, Colapinto, Ocon, and Fernando Alonso, who's only set a kind of outlap right now. So has Ocon. Everybody else is either on their way out in the pit lane or setting a lap. As that is Albon across the line to set their lap. Piastri into the pit lane. Colapinto very happy right now. They've set their lap. Will they be able to get themselves into the next part of qualifying? That's the question. And continue this good performance. Well, right now, they're just hoping to not crash the car. And I think they can consider the Canadian Grand Prix qualifying session a success and focus on the race tomorrow. They just need to try and beat Pierre Gasly. Right now, for Colapinto's career, that is their goal. Not to necessarily win the race, but just to try and beat their teammate. Yuki Tsunoda out on track right now with that grid penalty to their name. Currently sat in P13 going green though. Looking to set their first proper lap of the session. Currently Verstappen looking quick. There's Tsunoda to P7 though. 6 tenths away from their teammate right now. Verstappen's definitely dialed it in a little bit more. Big snap on the rear there for Hadjar. Not too much grip on entry to the final chicane. Still green. And they still go into the top 10 for now, but they've got a lot more work to do. They do want to have a look at getting into Q3 to give themselves the best chance with that grid penalty that they're very likely to get after the session due to impeding Carlos Sainz earlier on. Carlos Sainz ended up qualifying P17 and being knocked out, whereas his teammate qualified P8. Esteban Ocon now being under investigation for cutting the final chicane incorrectly. You've got to try and follow the right line, and if you don't do it correctly, you can gain an advantage, so they've got to be careful. Antonelli P8 for the Italian driver. A couple of tenths away, well, just under a couple of tenths away from their teammate George Russell, who's 2 positions ahead. Philippines having a bit of a moment there on the Wall of Champions. Pinto very close to the wall. Just want to say that again. And we were just saying all they need to do is make sure that they don't crash the car and keep it safe. They don't want to qualify P15, but they've got to make sure. They've got to be careful. Anyway, we need to move on from that one. Charles Leclerc currently P5 and on a push lap. Medium tyres for Max Verstappen in Q2 here, which is interesting. Will they finish this session on the medium tyre? Are they going to go out as late as they can? It looks like that might be the case, but we don't know if they're going to go on to that soft set. Both Ferraris out on track right now. Albon also out on track right now as well, as they go around the final chicane. And they will begin their lap. Charles Leclerc, 20.4 in the first sector. Pretty quick for the time being. A 22.607 in the middle sector. Looking, once again, very quick and quickest this time around. Hamilton into the pit lane. Leclerc will complete this lap though. They'll go into that final chicane and see what they can do. DRS open, put the brakes on, go through the chicane, open DRS one more time, up to the line, keep it to the right hand side to minimise that track distance. And there is the time there for Charles Leclerc, who goes to P1. Alright, that's Leclerc on top of the times. My prediction for pole position was Charles Leclerc in the chat earlier on. I have actually previously predicted that Norris would get pole position, but I'm going to pray that it could be Charles Leclerc to give it a go. It's not going to be quite like Monaco. It is a street circuit, but it's a bit easier to overtake at. And with soft tyres, a lot of grip, getting something done on the brakes is very possible. I say a lot of grip, you don't actually have that much grip around this circuit because it's a street circuit, because it's bumpy. Colapinto going green in the first sector on the medium tyre. This is what we're seeing from many drivers to try and get themselves into the next part of qualifying. So they're really trying to trust in this yellow wall tyre to give themselves a little bit more consistency and a better feel for the circuit. Green in the middle for the Argentine, who currently sits P12. 7.5 tenths away from Charles Leclerc's lap time. Half a tenth away from the car ahead, about 3/4 of a tenth away from Q3. And there you go, to P10 they go. Almost 2 tenths ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. Probably not going to be enough. both pray for Charles indeed. So far, that is still my prediction, but it's Max Verstappen. He does a 19.9 in the first sector, a 22.5 in the middle, and is looking to go to the top. No, they don't. They don't even improve, as they backed off in the final sector, and they'll get ready to go again and call it a day, unless they go straight into the pit lane, because Max Verstappen's probably safe here, to be honest. Leclerc, Verstappen, safe. Norris, probably safe. Piastri, maybe not so much. Hamilton, definitely not safe. Russell goes purple in the middle sector to beat Verstappen's middle sector from a moment ago. Verstappen is staying out on track to do a cool-down lap to then possibly go again. So we'll see what they can do. Tsunoda needs to get something done here. They're in the drop zone at the moment already. They will try to demote Colapinto, who quite possibly has ended their qualifying already. The Argentine driver on that medium tyre, going for a cool-down lap, might get another job done here as they are waiting, slowing down a lot to build their lap up ready to go again. So they will have one more lap, but it's Tsunoda who goes into the final chicane. Will not have any traffic, will go through cleanly, will get DRS, will cross the line. What's it going to be for Yuki Tsunoda? They go to P9, they demote Colapinto for now, and Antonelli, but no one else, where Max Verstappen is currently P3 and competing for pole position. Tsunoda is half a second away. Antonelli pushes Tsunoda back down to P10, and also Alonso in the same scenario. But is Antonelli safe with that one? It's Lando Norris to P2, as George Russell was recently set there. Pole position time here in Q2 at least. The final sector though for Lando Norris is purple, and they've definitely made a good step there, has George Russell, in the lap time. Antonelli, not really where they want to be. They could be at danger here. We've got Hülkenberg, Ocon, and Hadjar all improving. Hadjar and Ocon up next across the line. What's it going to be? Oh, Ocon will not improve, and that will be it for qualifying for Esteban Ocon. Hadjar across the line. They've got that grid penalty looming, but P9 knocks out Yuki Tsunoda, and Yuki Tsunoda will be out in Q2. Alonso puts themselves safe into P6, and they push down Hadjar and Antonelli, who could be at danger. Both of these cars, Hülkenberg, green right now. What's it going to be for the green car? Oh, it's P13. It's not enough, and that will be it for qualifying, I think. Colapinto, very unlikely to improve once again. Actually, they're in the pit lane already. I didn't see that one there. I was too focused on the timings and getting a little bit excited just then. That's the Mercedes overtaking Tsunoda, saying that Russell will get a penalty. They had two wheels within the limit of the pit lane, so they might be alright, but I'm not sure what the situation is there. Leclerc trying to move out the way for some traffic, and then completely got in the way. Right, okay, so actually that's not Leclerc blocking another car. That's Tsunoda jumping in front and almost causing a collision. So that's actually not a problem for Leclerc. Almost was a problem. But Tsunoda got karma for it and gets knocked out by an entire 10th in the end by Isaac Hadjar, the other Red Bull driver, or the Red Bull Academy driver. And that is Q2 done. Yuki Tsunoda is out in Q2. Colapinto follows them, followed by Nico Hülkenberg, who beats two Haas drivers of Behrman and Ocon. Behrman and Ocon not so happy, but are in a okay position to start this race, because they're going to get an extra position from Tsunoda, and Tsunoda will start this race in P20 with that 10th-place grid penalty. Michael Colapinto disappointed with what they've had. They were hoping that they could have found a bit more. They believed in Q3 being the case, but I'll tell you what, with that grid penalty, that's P11 guaranteed for Colapinto right now as a starting position. And if Hadjar qualifies P10 or maybe P8. If they got grid penalties, then Colapinto could start this race in P10. Or, yeah, P10. If Hadjar qualifies P8 or lower, that's going to be an extra position. So Colapinto could be starting this race. He's definitely starting in P11. He might start it in P10. And where their teammate is starting in P20, they've got a huge amount of cars in between them and their teammate. And they are looking for a very, very good race. A lot of excitement, a lot of mix-up, but it's George Russell who goes back to the top here in Montreal for Q2. But it's all about the important Q3 here for qualifying to get the job done. What can they do? Lando Norris P2 in the McLaren, Leclerc in P3, Verstappen in P4, Piastri still struggling relative to his teammate, down in P5. Then it's Alonso on that medium tyre, the only Aston Martin here in Q3, with Hamilton in P7, who was quick, not quite so quick in Q2. And then Albon, who repeats their Q1 position, another P8 for them to get them into the next part of qualifying as well, whereas their teammates, although was on a bit of a dodgy lap before getting knocked out of Q1, might have had an opportunity if they weren't impeded. So Oliver Behrman having a big moment with the wheel at turn 4, riding that curb and then just getting a snap of oversteer. That's where they would have lost most of their lap time, having to avoid the wall, and you basically end up struggling a lot. And here we go. Confirmation very shortly, hopefully, for the start of the final session of qualifying. We had the red flag earlier on for Alex Albon's engine cover in Q1 falling off. That caused us to delay a few minutes. So we'll get a final 12-minute session start very, very soon for the final time. We'll try and get this one figured out. Who will take that top spot? I predicted Norris. I've predicted Charles Leclerc. I haven't predicted George Russell, which seems a little bit silly now, considering that got pole last year and continues to be pretty quick throughout this year as well. Here we go. Qualifying comes to an end. A final session. As the cars are lining up at the end of the garage. And the drivers are ready to get to work, to do what they have been paid for. George Russell struggling with some bumpy moments with the car in FP1. They've definitely got on top of them very, very quickly, and they've been able to work their way into the session nicely as well. They did their Q, or they've currently set the medium tyres on their car. Whether that's correct information or not, we'll find out. Scrub tyres for Hamilton, scrub tyres for Piastri. It says this could change in a few moments' time. 6-lap-old medium tyres for Alex Albon, which would be absolutely crazy. But the 6-lap-old soft tyres for Oscar Piastri, so maybe not so crazy after all. It's, yeah, definitely difficult with the tyre allocation limit that all the drivers have to abide by. And you've got to make sure that you don't go over and use the correct ones, otherwise you'll get yourself a massive penalty, because you could gain a severe advantage. Oh, and that's Max Verstappen leaving the pit lane, ready to go for their pole charge. As quite a few people have expected or predicted with the LSI Watchalongs, we got quite a few votes for Verstappen in FP3. Qualifying not so favourable and a bit more favourable to Charles Leclerc. Only 5 votes, but that's one to someone else, which I'd assume would be Russell or maybe Piastri. And then we got 2 for Leclerc, 1 for Verstappen and 1 for Norris. Earlier on, it was basically half of the viewers looking to try and see if Max Verstappen could go for it, as they were quick before. So you never know what they can pull out the bag. But with Max Verstappen, you can't doubt them. You also can't doubt Charles Leclerc for pole position. Back in the day, you couldn't doubt Lewis Hamilton, and he's had a sprint race pole position this season so far already. And with this being one of their stronger weekends in the Ferrari car for 2025, maybe they actually have a chance. Am I dreaming? Or is it actually realistic? Purple first sector for Oscar Piastri as Charles Leclerc goes purple in the middle, but it's taken away by Lando Norris, as the Monegasque will complete the lap first to give us a good idea of what's going on. 9.5 minutes on the clock. It is crunch time. The pressure is on. The hearts are racing. It's Charles Leclerc with an 11.729 as they beat the fastest lap time of last year. Oh, and it's Lando Norris who will get a lap time deleted for that one as they go over the limit, and unfortunately that is going to be them done for the time being. Oscar Piastri though, purple in the middle sector, and they're going to go across the line, DRS wide open, and it's P1 for Oscar Piastri by 4.5 tenths. It's Verstappen who is purple though in the first sector, not purple in the middle, so they're not going to have such a good time relative to Piastri there. They've got one more to get the job done. That is a huge advantage that Oscar Piastri has relative to the rest of the field in P1 right now. With Lando Norris missing out on their run, they're not going to be happy with what has just happened to them. Verstappen, DRS as they leave the final corner once again. What's it going to be? A strong lap so far, but is it strong enough? Oh, it is. It is. A 1/4 of a tenth ahead of Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen is massively in front. And that's Lando Norris, who's missed the braking point effectively at the final chicane there. The engineer's on the radio saying, remember, let's reset and go again. Remember your braking points. He's continued out on track right now and hasn't gone back into the pit lane, so a little bit more of a stressful situation for Lando Norris is going to come up on him now. And that was just to confirm the lap time deleted for the Brit. It's Antonelli and Russell who are improving. And now it's Verstappen who's struggling about, talking about struggling with the steering early in the lap. It becomes heavy and then it just goes back to normal. So hydraulic and possibly electric issues there. Maybe a bit of a brain system from the steering wheel. That's Russell to P3. In the meantime, it's Albon to P8 right there. And it's Antonelli who goes almost a tenth behind Russell. A little bit more competitive relative to what we saw earlier on. But there's still plenty of time in this session. Green and green for Lando Norris. They're not going to have the freshest tyres, so they will not be expected to go to provisional pole with what they've done right now, but it's definitely going to give them a better chance. Very close to the wall of champions on the exit. DRS available, and Lando Norris to P5. 3.5 tenths away, though. Just ahead of Charles Leclerc. But a massive gap right now. Max Verstappen looking for another pole position here in Canada. As they missed out last year, redemption would be sweet. They've won this Grand Prix 3 years in a row, and they've won this Grand Prix 3 times. They're going to try and win it a 4th time if they can. But it all starts with qualifying and the grid position. Currently, they are in the best position possible with 5.5 minutes on the clock and not much time to think. Alex Albon across the line, ahead of Hadjar, but no more. 2 tenths away from Lewis Hamilton, and the gaps are definitely quite a lot bigger throughout the field. That is a medium tyre there for Alex Albon, so they might try and go again on a set of fresh softs or just a set of maybe scrub softs or any kind of soft. But yeah, that medium tyre that we've seen a few teams running is maybe not so beneficial anymore. Let's Lando Norris into the pit lane. And we'll just run you through the order as of now. 11.248 for Max Verstappen, who's a quarter of a tenth ahead of Oscar Piastri. It's George Russell followed by his teammate Antonelli, and then it's Lando Norris in P5. Leclerc, Alonso, Hamilton in P8, and then 2 tenths away is Albon, followed by 5 tenths away from Albon is Hadjar. So 1.1 seconds away from the current top time is the gap between Verstappen and Hadjar. Everybody in the pit lane, except from Alonso and Hamilton, who are, I believe, on in-laps at this point. No, it's an out-lap for Alonso, and it's their final run, quite possibly, as they start it. Hamilton slowly into the final chicane, and will start a lap as well. Currently, Leclerc ready to go and leaving the pit lane. And the other cars will probably start to dart out as well. Allowing Leclerc to basically just get going immediately as they leave the pit lane. They've timed that perfectly to give Hamilton a bit of breathing room behind and Leclerc a bit of breathing room ahead, so they can prepare their lap nice and quickly without worrying about being impeded, at least by their teammate. Fernando Alonso currently improving, and they are quicker than Hamilton right now in that first sector as well, on the medium tyre. A 22.596 for Fernando Alonso. Hamilton currently P8 and not... Well, it is quicker, sorry, in that middle sector, but didn't go for a PB. Alonso into the final chicane. What's it going to be for the Spaniard on the medium tyre, which could be their final lap in the session here, and it is likely to be so. And that's going to be a 29.062. Alonso to P4. Hamilton across the line. Quicker in the middle sector. Not so much in the first. And it's going to be ahead of their former rival and current rival. Looking at it right now. Half a tenth ahead is Hamilton on the soft tyres. The softs are still king, but they're not the best really, compared to what they should be. They should be a lot more better, or they should be a lot more better? They should be a lot more confident to be on a soft tyre relative to the mediums, but it just doesn't seem to be the way it's going. Charles Leclerc will begin their final lap. This will definitely be Charles Leclerc's final lap, and everybody is out on track right now. Not as busy as we saw earlier on, of course, with all the cars out on the circuit, but it is still as busy as it's going to get. Alonso is slowing down. Oh, Charles Leclerc's had a terrible time there. A massive, massive swap up. And now they're going side by side with the Racing Bull of Hadjar as they were trying to slow down a little bit, but they didn't want to concede position. And they're going to have to try and slow down a little bit and recoup some energy. But through turns 6 and 7, just really going left and right and all over the place. Purple in the first sector, though. They were very, very fast, especially relative to Lando Norris's first sector, who isn't going as quick as he would have hoped. It's a 19.8 for Piastri, though, so actually quicker than his teammate is Lando Norris. That just puts into perspective how good Charles Leclerc's first sector was. That was absolutely monstrous. But he's not going to do it. He's going to go straight to the pit lane. That's it. Max Verstappen, purple middle sector, a 22.4. Absolutely mega stuff right there. Here we go with Oscar Piastri to P1. P1, 1/10 ahead. Purple final sector. Lando Norris, though, is going to try and come back at him. Oh, a big moment over the curb in the final section. What's it going to be across the line? Oh, and he's not going to improve. He's not going to improve. Lando Norris qualifies P7 or lower. It's Max Verstappen who is going to go pole position. Pole position on the medium tyre. Half a tenth ahead. George Russell, purple in the middle sector. Can they do it? 2 times in a row. They can. Absolutely incredible. George Russell needs to hold on to their seat a little bit longer. Antonelli to P4. Is it going to be enough for George Russell? Well, Leclerc's in the pit lane. Alonso's improving, but they are done. They will not go. They only improved in the first sector, and they did not get the job done anywhere else. Wow. Isaac Hadjar is going green as they go across the line. Will they be able to challenge George Russell? I very much doubt it. They beat Alex Albon to it in the end by half a tenth of a second, but it's George Russell who goes once again to pole position in Canada by over 1.5 tenths of a second. And guess what? It's Max Verstappen in P2. It's a 1-2 for exactly the same order that we had this time last year. That's absolutely incredible. George Russell's on pole position. That Mercedes is very quick. Antonelli put it P4 ahead of Hamilton in the end there. Still a big gap between them and Piastri, and half a second away from his teammate. But I do have to say, I'm absolutely devastated for Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc really had a brilliant opportunity there. Complaining about how dirtier that was for Charles Leclerc. Not happy with it. And that's David Coulthard saying that it probably wasn't the case. But yes, a 19.7 in the first sector relative to a 19.781 for Russell. So a 19.781 for George Russell, and that was a 19.713 for Charles Leclerc. So putting that all together with the 22.6, I mean, that's a monster middle sector from George Russell. The 28.9 in that final sector. So realistically, Charles Leclerc would have still struggled to compete for pole position, but they would have probably been in the top 3. I'm going to say that for sure. But the one car that I didn't bet on going for pole position, I predicted Lando Norris. I predicted Charles Leclerc. They go P7 and P8. But it's George Russell who is P1. Absolutely incredible from George Russell. Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. That was an exciting qualifying session today. How about that? It's Lando Norris missing out, but their championship leader teammate is in P3, not on the front row of the grid. Max Verstappen still in prime position to take their fourth victory in a row here in Canada. What will we see tomorrow? We don't know. We won't be streaming it, but I do hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. That is qualifying done. That is George Russell on pole position with a 10.899. A 10.899. The only driver to do the 10-second margin. On the medium tire as well. Same for Max Verstappen with the mediums, but an 11.059. Then it's Piastri on the softs with Antonelli on the mediums. Softs for Hamilton in P5, then Alonso on the medium as well. And it's all the way through with the softs for Norris, Leclerc, Hadjar and Albon in P10. Earlier on, knocked out in the other parts of qualifying was Tsunoda, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, Behrman, Ocon, Bortoletto, Sainz, Stroll, Lawson and Gasly, with Tsunoda getting a 10-place grid penalty. They will start last. That will promote Colapinto to P11, and Hadjar likely to get a 3-place grid penalty. That is probably going to put Colapinto in P10 to start the race tomorrow. We'll see if that's going to be the case when we get confirmation from the stewards. But wow, what a qualifying session. What a race we've got ready for tomorrow. I cannot wait. We'll see them. We won't see them. Let us know if you enjoy it or not, and have a good one. Bye-bye.